let's move on to West Asia now. Just hours after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejected the idea of a ceasefire in Lebanon, the Israeli military launched strikes in South Beirut. Several explosions were heard in the capital's Haret Reik area, and plumes of black smoke could be seen billowing between buildings following strikes, which hit shortly after Israeli military ordered the residents to leave. The IDF targeted Beirut's southern suburbs after days of the area being spared strikes. Earlier, the Israeli Prime Minister, rejecting any truce with Hezbollah, insisted on creating a buffer zone along Israel's border with Lebanon with no presence of Hezbollah fighters. Netanyahu's statement came after Hezbollah's deputy leader Naim Qassem, in a defiant televised speech, threatened to expand the scope of its missile strikes across Israel. Early on Wednesday, Israel's military reported around 50 projectiles fired from Lebanon at the country's north without any report of casualties. While on Tuesday, Iran-backed Hezbollah said it launched a large salvo of missiles at the town of Safed. The IDF bombed several areas in southern and eastern Lebanon, including in the Bekaa Valley, where a hospital in Baalbek city was put out of service on Tuesday. It also said it captured 3 Hezbollah fighters in South Lebanon. Now, Lebanon's health ministry said 9 people were killed on Tuesday in strikes in the southern region, and 5 others, including 3 children, were killed in the east. And this while the United States raised concerns with Israel over the nature of its bombing campaign in Beirut in the past weeks. The U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said the civilian death toll was among Washington's major concerns in Lebanon.
They do have a right to go after legitimate terrorist targets. We see Hezbollah continue to operate across Lebanon, and Israel does have a right to defend itself against those terrorists who pose a threat to the state of Israel. But we've had real concerns about the nature of the campaign that we saw roll out across Beirut over the past few weeks, and we made those concerns publicly.
Now, the United States has also warned Israel that it may block some of its military assistance unless it improves aid delivery to the Gaza Strip within 30 days. In a letter sent on Sunday, the Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin expressed deep concern about the deteriorating humanitarian situation in Gaza. Our correspondent Jody Cohen is now joining us live from Ra'anana in Israel. Jody, first up, let's go across and talk about the letter. What has been the reaction in Israel to Washington's letter linking military aid for Israel to humanitarian aid in Gaza?
Hi, Isha. Yes, so in the leaked letter, Washington told Israel that continued American military assistance is contingent on Israel sending more aid into Gaza. Now, this story broke after a press briefing from Prime Minister spokesperson David Mencer, but he talked about aid to Gaza in that press briefing. He said that Israel is getting aid to Gaza's residents, and in northern Gaza in the last few days alone, he said that Israel has delivered 67,000 litres of fuel for hospitals, 6 tankers of cooking gas, and that 93,000 children have been vaccinated against polio. He said that Israel's committed to getting more aid, particularly in the medical field, to Gazan civilians, but also said that 530 trucks worth of aid have already entered Gaza and have been sitting there waiting for collection by the UN. An Israeli official has said that Jerusalem is reviewing the letter from the US officials, that Israel takes the matter seriously and intends to address the concerns raised with the administration. But some commentators are suggesting that they don't believe this is actually about Gaza. They believe this is about trying to limit Israel's response to Iran.
So when you are talking about Israel's military limitations, now Washington has said that it's against Israel targeting Iran's nuclear and oil sites. What does the letter really mean for Israel's ability to have military freedom?
Right, so President Biden has made clear that he's against Israel targeting Iran's nuclear or oil sites. Israel has said it would always listen to its closest allies, particularly the United States, but ultimately that they would make their final decision based on Israeli national interests. Now, Mensa said that this has always been the case. This is the case with any country that takes its national security seriously, and that the US understands that. The US, we know, is also against Israel's near-daily strikes in Beirut. They've said Israel has held back on striking Hezbollah there over the past few days, but on Wednesday morning we saw that Israel targeted a building in the Beirut suburbs after warning civilians to evacuate the building, and the IDF said that they targeted an underground weapons depot there. We know that the US and Israel are coordinating closely. Commentators believe that Israel would definitely consider America's perspective before taking any action, but ultimately that Israel is defending itself on 7 fronts against Iran and its proxy terror network.
Jody, is this enough, this stance by the US? Is it enough to curtail Israel? Or is there another strategy that the United States could have adopted?
That's an interesting question. It assumes that what is said publicly is the same as what's being said privately. We also know that there are election interests going on as well, with the elections coming up in the United States. We know that America does want to stop Iran, for example, pursuing a nuclear program, and we know that experts have said that Iran's program has exceeded civilian purposes. So again, what's said in public, what's said in private, potentially are two different matters. But the US and Israel are working very closely. They're coordinating. America sent the THAAD missile defense system to help defend Israel, and also American citizens in Israel. They've said specifically to protect against any attack from Iran, a ballistic missile attack, and also to help defend against attacks from Iran's proxies as well. Whether or not Israel will strike Iran's nuclear or oil sites remains to be seen. Israel, of course, is not giving anything away in terms of what its plan will be.
Thank you, Jody, so much for joining us on the show today. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.